most challenging thing for anybody, whether you're a leader or not, is how do you keep yourself motivated? How do you keep yourself learning? How do you keep yourself growing? Only when you do that, honestly, can you positively impact others or deal with change. So I agree here. And the reason I picked these three were, the book actually was born in a very different way from any other book I've written. I didn't sit and say I'm going to write a book. It has started as accumulation of
Yes.
me posting on LinkedIn over an extended period of time, with this hashtag leadership in 100 words. And several people started asking me, why don't you put all of this together in a book? So then I stepped back and said, what are the big themes? And that's why I said, look, these are the three broad themes. How do you grow yourself? How do you impact others? And it's always been important, but I think it's even much more important given what's happened over the last 2 years is how do you deal with change and volatility?
Change.
And that's why I
Yes.
structured all the different questions and answers under these three heads. The first time this actually entered my head, I must have been in my mid 20s. I was a newly promoted brand manager. It was the first time I was leading a team. I think I had three direct reports. So till then, life was simple. You're working on your priorities, your projects. So I still remember, we had this presentation to some big global leader and everybody had prepared for it. And, I think they ran out of time. They said, we're sorry, we don't have time. And, I said, okay, I was disappointed, but I said, it's okay. But I still remember walking out of the room and I saw these three young people and their shoulders were drooping, they were downcast. And then it really struck me that it's not just about the business and the numbers and the plans,
About the
how
people.
these people feel depends to a large
Yeah.
extent on how I'm leading them. And at that moment, I realized that, look, what I say now, what I do now is going to have a huge impact on these people. So I basically said, hey, let me buy you all a drink. Let's go down. Let's chat. And because I realized that it's on me. If I walk away then and I say, no problems, they're going to be downcast. And that was the first time I still remember it struck me that I am responsible not just for people's careers and deliverables and
Absolutely.
projects, but
Absolutely.
how they feel. And
Yeah.
along the way in my career, I mean, the best leaders I've worked with go beyond who you are as a employee or what your job responsibility is, but really go beyond and understand what's happening in your life, what's going through your mind, how can they help you. So I still remember when we had our first when we had our son Adi. This was He's now 13 years old, and as first time parents, it's exciting, it's terrifying. And I remember going and telling my boss at that time, a lady called Nantara, was an amazing leader. And I went and told, and she had known me ever since I had started my career. So she had known me from when I was like a 22-year-old freshie, and she'd seen me get married. Now I came and told her, yeah, no, we're going to have a baby. And what I loved was, she didn't just say, oh, great, nice. She actually gave up me so much advice on, what
Okay.
changes in your
Okay.
life,
What to expect and all.
what to expect, mistakes she made. That was amazing because for me, that was a leader looking at you as a human being, not just
Yeah.
as a resource or a manager. And,
Absolutely.
and I think those are the
Absolutely.
moments when you really can make a big difference to someone's life because you're then impacting them not just on the job, but truly taking your experiences and helping someone in their life beyond the job as well.
Absolutely. So here you write weak leaders rush to judge employees based on how, style, personality, which all of us try hard to
Absolutely.
impress our bosses. Most leaders focus on what, results, milestones, but the great leaders also insist on why, motivations, fit, capability. I think some of my hardest interviews or some of my hardest interactions have
Yeah.
always been on motivation, just trying to convince or tell that no, this is something for me and why I want to do it, why it is interesting for me. So every task I start, I think this is like really important. So tell us, what are your whys of being an author and also being a leader, being a marketing professional yourself? Do you have very
Yeah.
clear whys for these two?
See, I think for me, across all the things I do, whether it's being an executive in the corporate world, whether it's being an author, or indeed, whether it's probably the most important thing I do is just try and be the best possible father and husband I can be.
Yes.
I think across all of them, I think there are a couple of things that drive me. I think one thing that drives me is, look, I would love, if even in a small way, to make a positive impact to people, and just leave things a little bit better than they were. And that's something which I think really drives me. And I think we're all conditioned by our life experiences. So I
Yes.
lost both my parents pretty early. I lost my mother when I was 28, lost my father 9 years ago. And I still remember reflecting after that, that look, when we're no longer there, nobody remembers all the tangible things you've done. Nobody's ever going to
Yes.
remember how much profit you delivered in a quarter. All
Yes.
that
How
matters
good
are
you
the
were to them.
exactly the memories you've left behind, the values you've transmitted, the difference you've made to others' lives. So I think that's a big thing that drives me, across anything I do. So even when I'm writing, what's driving me is, if even if in a small way I'm able to provoke some thought, or even if just entertaining the thriller, make somebody
Yeah.
feel good for a little while, that's something which I hope lasts beyond, my time interacting with that reader through that book, because I've left something in their mind. And it's the same with my family. I hope I'm able to transmit values and memories to my son so he grows up to be a good young man. It's the same with businesses and brands, that I hope I'm able to make some difference to people who are working with me, which outlasts my time working with them. So I think that's one core part of it. I think the second part that's really core to my why, which I think comes back a bit to what you talked about, going beyond the superficialities, is I deeply am passionate about the fact that the world would be a much better place if we went beyond superficial differences and we actually got to understand and empathize with each other. And I
Yeah.
think I think again goes back to my own life experiences. So as a kid, we moved around a lot. My dad was in the government, went through 8 different schools, lived in many parts of India, lived in Canada for almost 5 years. And as you might imagine, when you're moving that much as a kid, some
Absolutely.
people accept you, some people don't. So I remember when we moved to Canada, I was the first kid from India in my
Yes, I was
class.
just going to tell you about the
Yeah.
Canada story that you have put.
Yeah.
So that brings me
And
right there. So
yeah,
moving through change, leading
yeah,
through change,
absolutely.
and you have this beautiful story from Canada that you write about skating, ice skating with your mother,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and how you let go the fear of embarrassment, because it was
Yeah.
more fear of embarrassment than actually just fear
Exactly.
of not able
Exactly.
to skate. So
Yeah.
yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that whole experience, on the one hand, taught me that how do you embrace differences, how do you
Yeah.
embrace diversity, and the specific example you're talking about on skating. Now looking back, at that time I was too young to think of it, but now looking back, I think it was an amazing gift my mother gave me. So I was terrified of ice skating, and all my friends used to do it, and I didn't. And I remember, she just basically bought skates for herself, held my hand, and we said, "Come on, we'll go on the ice together." We both fell numerous times. And I realized that, ultimately, obviously, I figured it out, but it took immense courage for her to show that, look, let's fall together, let's do this together. And I think it just took away my fear of, looking foolish in front of others, getting embarrassed. And I think the big lesson as I look back now is, you can't help people change or take risks by telling them to do it. The most powerful way of doing it sometimes is joining them in
Just
that
go through it
journey
yourself.
and
Yes.
go through it together. And I think that's what really